it was, it's actually last night, but it kind of continued into this morning. Let me get my settings set here. And basically what it wasn't classified information, but there was kind of some information that it would be considered confidential, but again, not classified. And I changed the setting to my live stream I did last night to unlisted, just because there was some things in there that Gemini revealed that should not have been revealed. So Gemini, there's two different types of Gemini AI. There's one that's being used by the military, and that's completely separate from the public Gemini AI. But the Gemini AI basically had revealed some things that was really more of a security increase to security that shouldn't have been revealed, shouldn't even been offered up. And later in the morning, Google Gemini admitted that it shouldn't have, and that it was an error. So anyways, I just went ahead and set that live stream so to unlisted. So it's no longer available. So if you didn't watch it, you aren't going to be able to know what I'm referencing to. But however, so in that particular live stream, I shared the military units that were already deployed, and you're not going to hear about in the military. I mean, in the media, what you're going to hear about in the media is that, that Trump's wrong and there's no authority and on it goes. But, well, that's just not reality because of the ruling that came down last month. And the SCOTUS is basically to use active duty. So here's what happened today in Minneapolis. An attorney general filed a federal lawsuit kind of late in the day, so they set a hearing for tomorrow. And basically, Minneapolis doesn't want 2,000 ICE agents being sent in because they have mobs that are banging on hotels that our ICE agents are at, and they're just surrounding them. And so then whatever position you're in, I'm just telling you what specifically the position is. And for the last several months, I know that the world has seen as all these people have been stalking ICE, and it's just on and on. It's gotten bigger and bigger. But what people haven't been realizing is what they've been preparing. See, the military has been operating very quietly into preparing for where we're at now. So logistically, the first thing they had to do is they had to build the detainment centers. They had to obtain places that they can house people, and they had to build detainment centers. So back when they passed the Lake and Riley Act, they got almost $27 billion to build these detainment centers. And then they had to wait out this suit in SCOTUS, okay, which basically gave the current clearance to use military power. And so they have set everything in motion, and they have quietly moved military units in place. And so they've already said that if this judge rules that they cannot send in these 2,000 ICE agents, and they've promised that if the 2,000 ICE agents is not enough to make the arrest that they're wanting to make, then they're going to send in the military. But what people haven't been realizing, while the media has just basically been saying all the things they say on the left, what they don't know is about these rebellion wings. So they created these facilities. They're not just for people who are being deported. They're for all of the people who are creating these ICE watch, and they have just allowed them to just build up their networks and do their stuff for the last several months. And so now what they're getting ready to do is they're going to arrest all of them. They're getting ready for mass arrests, and that is getting ready to happen. So here's some of the things that people need to know. Like Gemini is talking about how they're going to be housed, where they're going to be housed, and they have categorizations now. They have labeled these people as obstructionists. And here's the thing about, because there's terroristic cell, whether people accept that there's terroristic groups and the Trinidad and the Tifa and all these terroristic cells, and they're using the words terroristic networks, and so that raises everything to a military level on how it's being handled and that was what they call ROE, which is rules of engagement. So the Pentagon has created for 2026 new rules of engagement for what they have now called obstructionists. So people, not just regular protesters, but people who are working with groups who specifically follow ICE, get in front of their cars, surround them, basically impede them in any way, encourage others to do that. All of those people have now been categorized. They have 4 categorized labels, and it's code words, and it's called CAT, CAT-W. Those are people who blow whistles. Those are people who are using noisemakers to alert others that ICE is like on its way. Then they have CAT-V. Those are CAT V, and every single categorized, however their person is categorized, has a security level on how they're going to be treated when they're detained. And they have specific rebellion wings in these federal facilities. I'm getting ready to show you where all these federal facilities are. And the thing about these rebellion wings is when you have mass arrests, the federal prisons are already full. So these rebellion wings, they're going to be held without bail. They've already determined that, and they've already had some judges who have agreed with that, and there are people currently being held without bail. It's not talked about in the media because there's a blackout, because the Pentagon has created restrictions for the media. They're not allowed to discuss the military movements. They now have all the military units in place. They're not allowed to talk about these protocols that they're using. So basically when it happens, I don't know, I'm sure that it's going to be found out eventually. So you don't have to believe me, but you can see that this is getting ready to happen, right? So then there's CAT O, which is people who organize these, like ICE Watch. So they have classified ICE Watch networks as terroristic networks. And anyways, so you have let me go into this. Okay, so this is about the there's a DA who is trying basically showboating politically, if you will, saying that they're gonna investigate this ICE agent, but they will arrest that DA. If they will arrest anybody who tries to arrest that ICE agent. That would be obstruction because ICE agents have their protocols. They have their training protocols, and the only way that you can fight if you don't like how they're handling certain situations, you have to take them to federal court and sue to find these specific policies unconstitutional, because these are federal policies and they have been cleared by the FBI because these are the protocols. And so, any DA who doesn't have any jurisdiction, if they try to obstruct what they have trained their ICE agents to do, they will be arrested. So, and they're already threatening to arrest local officials, and those local officials are under investigation. They already arrested one judge for interfering with ICE, and she's now convicted, and she hasn't been sentenced yet, and she's facing 5 years. And so these local officials, like, they're just going to keep on. But I'm just telling you now, I just feel like all that talk about trying to investigate the ICE agent, that's all showboating. That's political showboating. They're not going to touch that ICE agent. They will be arrested if they try to. Right? If they even try to, I think if they even try to take a grand jury indictment, they would be arrested for obstruction. So, that's basically, what they've done. They don't have to share anything with them because it's completely federal jurisdiction anyways, but yeah. So, okay. So then I'm going to go to these facilities. I want to talk about these facilities that have these rebellion wings, just so people understand that this is real, that's getting ready to happen. And so the whole insurrection rebellion argument. So this judge, what they want, the Attorney General for Minnesota, what he wants the judge to issue a temporary restraining order that will disallow bringing in 2,000 ICE agents. And so Trump has already said, and he's not only said this, he's prepared for it. He said, listen, if this judge blocks us bringing in ICE agent, we will use the Insurrection Act. This is currently what they're using. This is the statute that they're currently using and have sent in all these troops. But if any judge tries to block them from bringing in the troops, this is what happened today. He said, if this judge in this lawsuit, the hearing is tomorrow, if the judge says that they cannot send in ICE, well, they're going to send in the troops. And so people have no idea that, and I feel like as a war veteran, I served in Desert Storm, and I know that whenever, most of the times our troops are being moved, Okay, we know when deployments are getting ready to happen normally because it's happening in another country, and sometimes they discuss it, sometimes they don't. Depends on the operation, if they're trying to use stealth, or it's just, it's massively publicly known that they're getting ready to go to war. Depends on the situation. But normally, when they move military units, they do not reveal their movements. And I was deployed to war, and I know that when we did move by convoy, it was always very quietly and usually in the middle of the night. Okay, and so they have already moved these quietly. They have moved these units in place, and they're currently under status of protecting, basically just kind of guarding the perimeters of these facilities that I'm getting ready to share with you, where they're getting ready to house people. And they have been building for months now, these facilities, and they're still trying to obtain more facilities. But I'm going to share with you. So I asked Gemini, how many beds are there in the rebellion wings? Because how quickly will these fill up? So if people don't, if they don't get the message and they continue to go out there in massive amounts, the military will arrest them. And the military police is there to assist ICE if the amount of ICE can't work. So I believe that what will happen is if this judge tomorrow at the hearing issues a temporary restraining order, he will probably first appeal it, okay? Or he may just go ahead and use the Insurrection Act, or just wait out, because I'm pretty sure this judge knows that ruling would be overruled. It would definitely be overruled by the higher court. And, either way, he's going to send the troops in. It's over. If the 2,000 ICE agents and the hundreds more if they need doesn't work to control and be able to make these arrests of these who are now called obstructionists, they're no longer called protesters. They've been categorized. And I'm going to tell you something else. They so have it. This is how prepared they have it. They have forms. They now have brand new government forms, military forms that have, forms have numbers on them, letters and numbers. And so they already have pre-made forms that are already pre-typed up. So they have created, the Pentagon has created their criteria. And so they're going to be classified as whistlers, or Cat W are the people who use whistlers. Cat V is the ones who use their vehicles. Cat O are the organizers. So they will be categorized on these forms, and however they're categorized depends on what type of security and how they're going to be housed, right? And there's higher level security, and it is extremely stringent, right? These obstructionists, I'm telling you now, is getting ready to go down. So this is the amount of facilities they currently have. So while the term rebellion wings is a designation used in official and media context to describe unit housings of those arrested for obstructing ICE or the military, the actual capacity is managed by the Bureau of Prisons. Designated units. In early 2025, the Department of Justice began clearing units in major federal facilities specifically for ICE detainees and obstructionists. I'm telling you, they've been planning on this for a long time. So key sites include, but they've had to wait out all these legal battles, okay? And they're now at the door. They have got the clearance, for the most part from the Supreme Court. They're going to wait out this judge's ruling tomorrow, and then it's going to either be they're sending in ICE to make massive arrests, or they're going to, use the military, whichever. If the judge blocks ICE, he's sending in the military. So whatever the judge does tomorrow will determine whether it's ICE or the military arresting people. Bottom line, okay? Because it's going to be the Insurrection Act. And he will include the ruling of the judge being corrupt and trying to prevent them from doing their lawful duties. And this judge knows that, so I would be very surprised if, the judge actually issues a full temporary restraining. He might place limits or something like that, but either way, this is getting ready to happen. So the total federal capacity as of January 8th, 2026, there are approximately 153,647 total federal inmates, with nearly 14,000 held in other types of specialized facilities. So overflow targets. The federal jails in LA, Miami, Philadelphia have been repurposed to receive hundreds of these new detainees at a time. And now that they have all these new forms that are like pre-made out, and they just like whatever category, it'll be so quick the way they do this paperwork. They'll be like, okay, well, this person was an O, W, and a V. They use their vehicle, they use whistles, and they're organizers. So they just classify, there's click boxes, and it's going to be so quick. The paperwork's going to be so quick, and they're going to, I'm telling you, mass arrests are getting ready to happen. So if these wings, these rebellion wings get full, they have military bases set up for overflow capacity. It says you're correct. Administration is utilizing military bases for massive overflow as traditional federal prisons have reached their record levels. So there's Fort Bliss in Texas, and so it doesn't matter where they're arrested. They're going to ship them to these places here. Okay, if the federal facilities there are full. And so people, if you want to go out there and get a part of that, you need to take, I just hope and pray that people realize what's getting ready to happen, because you will be away from your family. They won't be able to visit you. There will be no bail, because it falls under statutes, because this is considered terrorism, because you're basically trying to obstruct these ICE agents from, arresting some people who are actually considered terrorists. And so, yeah, it's very serious. And there will be, under very stringent conditions, they will be allowed visitors, but there will be no contact. There will be no bail. And they've already had judges going along with the no bail conditions. So pretrial no bail, right? So anyways, so they have this 1,000-bed initial facility in August. And so the final goal was 5,000 beds. And like I said, the last few months, all these people have been getting used to being able to get by with this stuff. And everybody's like getting frustrated. Like, why are they allowing them to do this? Why are they allowing? And I've been one of those frustrated people. Like, why are they letting these people do this? And it's like, okay, well, they just have to get things ready. They've had to prepare. They've had to, first they got that, almost $27 billion proposed, this right here under Lake and Riley Act funding. This money right here has the goal of adding 110,000 total beds to the system, specifically for ICE operations, to include United States citizens who are obstructionists. And the way that the system is going to be sentencing them, they're going to get more severe sentencing depending on if any person escapes because of their whistleblowing. Whatever the seriousness of that crime of that person who escaped, they're going to get more serious crime. Let's say if it's just somebody who's not like a serious criminal that got away because of what their actions were, then they'll get a lesser sentence. But let's say if it's like a murderer or a like a tender or a terrorist, then they will get the most severe sentencing. Like, that's how they have categorized their sentencing for these obstructionists. So the record detention levels, ICE custody surge. The number of detainees ICE custody reached record 61,000. Projection for January 2026 suggests this number could climb as high as 107,000. So it includes an additional $500 million specifically to support a baseline of 50,000 permanent detention beds for ICE, separate from temporary military base housing. So it is to ensure, and we're not talking, these are not for the people who are being deported. These are these United States citizens that they have absolute authority to arrest. And I've been trying to share with people, showing them the statutes under, 18 U.S.C. 1537 5A. They do have authority when they impede ICE and federal officers, or basically any officer, from trying to issue arrest. It is a federal crime, and so they do have authority to arrest them. And you've got people out there, I don't know who, I can't remember who it was. Somebody was like, some police chief was like trying to knock ICE, like they're wannabe police law enforcement. I'm like, honey, they have more law enforcement authority than you do, because first of all, they have their own federal policies and you can't touch them. They can arrest you, but you can't arrest them. See, unless the federal government says they can. So I'm just like, lady, these law enforcement officers have way more power than you do. Okay, and they will be arresting people. They absolutely have power to arrest people. And it seems almost like their negative rhetoric and lying to people and saying that they don't have this power to arrest them almost seems like a setup. That's how I feel about it. But I know that their agenda is just to talk smack about this, even though under Biden they deported more people and arrested more people, like over 1 million in like 1 year alone, but anyways, it's only when the Republicans are in power that people get mad about ICE. So anyways,
So it is this administration strategy is to make sure that these United States citizens obstructionists are removed from local communities immediately and held in these federal wings or the military sites where local DAs and state judges have no jurisdiction to release them. Okay? No local DAs will be able to come to their rescue. All right. So here's the locations. Okay. The Trump administration has aggressively expanded its detention network to manage what it describes as obstructionists and insurrectionists. So there's two different classifications. So as of January 12th, that's today, the administration is moving toward a total detention capacity of over 110,000 individuals. So the military-based detention locations, to handle the massive overflow from traditional federal prisons, the administration has repurposed or expanded several military installations into high-capacity detention hubs. This is why they've been allowed to get by with doing what they're doing for all these several months now, and it's because they've had to logistically prepare for mass arrests. Right? So Fort Bliss, Texas, home to Camp East Montana, the nation's largest detention facility, holds 3,000 people, but it's expanding towards 5,000 beds. Joint Base McGuire-Dix, Lakehurst, New Jersey, approved a hold up to 3,000 beds for ICE use. Indiana, Camp Atterbury is targeted for immediate access to detained immigrants and those obstructing federal law. Now, I don't know if they're going to keep these terrorists that they're arresting that are actual Trinidad and these obstructionists on the same wing. I don't know, but it's going to be maximum security, 23-hour lockdown, 23 hours a day, and it will take years under their sentence for them to be able to even apply based on what their security level and based on what activity they participated in. It will take years before they can even ask for a step down in the security to go from maximum to medium, right? And if you committed specific acts, you're not even eligible to ask. You will do your entire sentence in the full maximum security, and that's 23 hours a day. No general pop, right? And basically they'll be treated as terrorists, basically. So Guantanamo Bay in Cuba has been reopened for high priority detainees, including those labeled as terrorist threats or the leaders of the rebellious actions against the federal agents. And keep in mind, this is under military action that these arrests are going to be made, right? So if this judge issues this order to basically not allow these ICE agents, he's going to invoke it. He's going to invoke the military, and it's going to be so much worse for them to be arrested under an Insurrection Act military time. Oh my gosh. So the planned scouted sites, the administration is currently building or scouting additional soft-sided tent facilities, which they do have some soft-sided tent facilities at Kirtland Air Force Base in New Mexico, the Buckley Space Force Base in Colorado, and the Hill Air Force Base in Utah. So those will house up to 10,000 people per site. So that's a total of 30,000 people that they can house. So the rebellion wings and the federal prison repurposing. So in addition to these military bases that I just shared, the Bureau of Prisons has cleared space in existing facilities to house those arrested for felony obstruction. So they won't be in general pop. They'll be on specific wings just for these people to do these activities. So FCI Berlin, New Hampshire, one of the several sites identified as receiving high security detainees from the Northeast, FDC Philadelphia, and DC LA. These centers are being used as just basically processing hubs for those arrested. And that's another thing. You got to think about it too, because they will be shipped off and they won't be near their loved ones. Okay. And it's it falls under federal statute. So it's not like if you get arrested in the state prison and you go, to wherever county you live in, and you go to the nearest state prison or whatever, you're not going to be in this. You could end up not in the same state. If somebody's arrested, they could be shipped off to wherever these facilities are. So the Louisiana lockup. The administration has partnered with the Louisiana State Penitentiary to utilize its specialized high security wings for federal overflow. So the funding and future capacity, that talks about the $45 billion for detention earmarked for building new centers. But so I'm just basically talking about the current ones that they have now. Now I'm going to go into here's the ones that's already they're already in position. They've already been put in position, and their status is that they're basically, securing the perimeter of these facilities, but they're there also that if ICE agents start using the codes the Pentagon has created, there's codes, special codes, that if they get outnumbered, they will be able to go out and assist and make mass arrests. If they start surrounding these ICE agents, they're going to make mass arrests, and the military is going to assist in these arrests if ICE agent needs it. So if they send in 2,000 ICE agents and they can't handle that, then they've already said, well, we'll send a few hundred more. And so, but if they're blocked from using ICE, then it's just going to go straight to military. And yeah, you don't want to mess around. Don't mess around and find out. So military readiness and positioning. The military units previously identified in established ready or support positions. They're already there. They've already been moved. They're already in position. So the 10 Mountain Division, currently leading a joint task force overseeing logistics and security for federal operations. 82nd Airborne Division reports had confirmed internal discussions at the White House regarding the deployment of 82nd Airborne to domestic sites to handle unrest. Quick reaction forces. These units are designed to deploy within 8 to 24 hours to assist federal agents if they are surrounded or outnumbered by mobs. Okay? This is stuff, they're prepared. This is getting ready to happen. Response to local obstruction. The federal government has categorized recent harassment of agents at Minneapolis hotels and interference with vehicles as criminal acts. The enforcement strategy. While local police have mostly refrained from mass arrests, the federal agents are now using tear gas and pepper balls to break up bystander crowds, interfering with operations. So it's escalated. Homeland Security said that the arrival of more agents on January 12 to 13. Okay, so it's interesting. I find it interesting that the Attorney General for the state of Minnesota waited until today. They knew that these agents were coming, to make these mass arrests. Okay. They waited until today to file a lawsuit to get this protective order, trying to block these agents. And I'm like, you wait till they're already there? So I'm pretty sure some of them are already there. So they're supposed to be arriving today and tomorrow. And they said if 2,000 is not enough, they'll send hundreds more. Right. And if that doesn't work, then we'll go to the military. So tomorrow we'll find out what happens in the hearing on who's going to be doing the arrest. Right. So it's basically they're going to manage the mobs that have been impeding ICE duties. So this I just don't believe, there's no way this Attorney General's lawsuit, I just feel like it's more than anything, it's just political showboating. It's just political showboating. To me, that's all it is. And they may get a partial temporary restraining order, or maybe if they gets a full temporary restraining order, it'll be overruled. Anyways, the next 24 hours are critical. If the federal court attempts to limit ICE's use of force or restrict their movements tomorrow, the administration is legally and operationally already prepared to pivot to a full military response to suppress the rebellion it claims is being led by local and judicial obstructionists. So here's another thing. If they succeed in, let's say somebody challenges them on, invoking the Insurrection Act, and with everything that's happened, there's not going to be any problem. There's not going to be a problem. There's been so many injuries and so many threats on them, and so much evidence they've been collecting. They will have no problem. They can actually arrest this judge as an obstructionist if they're being classified. So anyways, okay, so there's that one. So I'm going to go into, oh yeah, I finally was able to get my sound stabilized. So those ads that are like really, really loud on YouTube, I found out how to set my settings in my computer. I had to reset my driver off of the Realtek driver, and I had to force it because it wasn't going to let me. So now I'm using Microsoft high definition audio, generic audio, and it's totally stable. So thank you. Okay, so did I show? Okay, so I'm going to show you the specific. I'm going to show you the specific. I'm trying to find this. No. Okay, these are the specific units that have already been positioned, if I'll use the word positioned. Okay. All right. So the 10th Mountain Division from Fort Drum, New York, as of January 5th, there are certain elements of the 10th Mountain Division that are leading a joint task force assigned to the United States Northern Command to oversee the border interior enforcement logistics. And the 23rd Military Police Company from this division has also been specifically activated for security operations. And what Jim and I told me last night was that they're putting flyers out. Thank you. They're putting flyers out on posts saying that they could be arrested by military police or ICE. Yeah. So I haven't seen anybody showing pictures of that, but they're warning them that certain behaviors. And so I had argued with Gemini. I said, I feel like since the media is not only telling them that what they're doing is not unlawful, I feel like as a Christian, God is a just God, and he's going to tell people they should be warned if they're doing something that's, against the law. I think that's what God would want. And so they said, well, they're putting signs out in these areas, in these what they're classifying as rebellion zones. They're putting these signs out and posters, and they said that the judges have already accepted that as sufficient notice that their behavior is a violation of law. Regardless of if they choose to listen to what they hear on the media instead of listening to what, the signs are saying, that if you do this, this, and this, you can be arrested for this, this, and this, then that's on them. So it's kind of already been upheld in court. So they've already done their test run on those signs as being sufficient evidence and, or sufficient notice that their behavior is lawful, regardless of what the media is saying. Okay, so you got 82nd Airborne Division, the 3rd Brigade Combat Team of the 82nd Airborne. It's the nation's rapid response force, was placed on alert, and they're not there yet, but they've already been prepared for mobilization. So the 89th Military Police Brigade from Fort Cavazos, Texas, along with the 720th Military Police Battalion, is providing actively force protection and security at the detention hubs in Texas. So you have these people already positioned, and they're ready to be transitioned into active arrest mode if they have to. And then you have your 1st Combat Engineer Battalion from the 1st Marine Division, Camp Pendleton. So hundreds of Marines from this unit are currently already deployed to support the barrier construction and site security for federal detention zones. So, the detention on military bases and the overflow protocol. The administration has designated specific military bases to house the United States citizens and non-citizens arrested for felonies when civilian facilities are full. So, you've got Fort Bliss, Texas, Joint Base Dix, New Jersey, Camp Atterbury, Indiana. So the Military Housing Authority under 10 U.S.C. 284, the Department of Defense is authorized to provide these facilities and the perimeters for force protection. So while active duty troops such as the military police from the 89th or 759th MP brigades secure the outer perimeter, the U.S. Marshals and ICE are maintaining 24/7 oversight of the detainees within the site to comply with domestic law. Detention zones. Locations like Antonia Lackland have established the national defense areas. So these are extensions of military installations where the troops provide a secure space for the temporary detention before they're transferred suspects to the civilian legal authorities. So that's like, say, if the military arrests them and then they turn them over because they're going to stay at a federal facility or whatever. So the security during the civil unrest. So FBI and ICE surged over 2,000 officers, and this is what the lawsuit was about today, to try to block these 2,000 officers that are probably already there, at least most of them, to the region, many of whom were redirected from other crackdown zones like New Orleans. And so, yeah, they're there. So they're supposed to be arriving today and tomorrow. So they filed the suit today, kind of late in the day, and as of the judge didn't issue a ruling today, so it's good sign that the judge didn't automatically issue the temporary restraining order. Instead, he set a hearing, and so he's going to listen to the argument tomorrow. And so, yeah, people might want to follow that. And so anyways, I don't no matter what the judge does, the mass arrests are going to happen regardless, right? Okay, so these people who are arrested will attend a Zoom court. They're not going to be transported into any court physically at all, because they don't want people showing up to support them, and it'll all be done by Zoom. So so they have this space as a transit and detention hub. So these are the ones right here that they're using to house these United States citizens, obstructionists. So under the institutional hearing program, this is what they're doing. Basically video teleconference, which actually a lot of courts are doing that. That's not anything really new or special, I don't think, but it's specifically that's the only way it's going to be handled. So the detention motions, this is the statute they're using, saying they're filing motions for pretrial detention without bail. So there's nobody going to be able to go in there and rescue them. There's no DAs or local judges or politicians that are going to be able to get them out of there. Said that the detainees are a danger to the community or a risk of continued obstruction of justice. And the reason, like, obstruction of justice is so vague. Like in most places, like, you just have, like, obstruction of justice can be so many things. But when it involves terroristic networks and terroristic cells, and you see these words being used, then it becomes a national security issue, and then it becomes a very severe form of obstruction of justice, and so that's how it's been classified. So they're only going to be accessible to the public via official court Zoom links, though recording or rebroadcasting these feeds is going to be prohibited, and they can be prosecuted, blah 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 blah. Okay, so then it talks about, I'm going to talk about, I can't share some of that stuff, right? All right. Okay, I'm gonna show you how they're categorizing these people out there, just to show you just how long that they have been preparing for this. They've got these different codes, which I'm not going to talk about those codes. I don't think that should have been shared. Okay, so here's the forms right here. The Department of Justice, Department of Homeland Security, okay, have streamlined the administrative process for detaining these obstructionists. They're going to be mass arrests during the rebellion scenarios. So they have these different forms that I was telling you about earlier. These different forms are like pre-made out government forms, right? So you've got the I-213 for deportable admissible alien. You've got your I-247A for immigration detainer notice of action, felony warrant, I-826 notice of rights and requests for disposition. And then you've got these statutes here that they're going to be arresting people using to make these arrests. I want to go. Oh, vehicle is a weapon. So this specific type, these they call Cat Vs. Anybody that uses a V, these are going to be the highest security. So if they are in any way involved, even if they don't try to hit an officer, if they're even using it to block an officer, it's still categorized as the same severity. So yeah, it's considered using a deadly weapon under 18 USC 111B. And that they will have no bail. They will have no bail, guys. And I do believe that people who have already been involved, they've been surveilling, and they've already collected data. They probably would be making arrests and getting warrants for a lot of the people that have already done stuff. I don't know that. I haven't seen that being said, but I'm just thinking that's something that they could do. But I think they're probably going to prioritize the people that are out there, trying to obstruct them, if you will. Those are the words. Okay. So I'm trying to find the cat where it talks about they classify them as cats. Of all things, they call them cats. CAT. Aiding and abetting. Oh, yeah. And so Cash is already, this is new. This is like this week, right? So he has said he's going after the organizers and funders. And I do believe that there's going to be arrests of officials. They're just really just making sure they have slam dunk cases and building their cases and make sure they get everything in order before they do that. But he's made these announcements that they're specifically targeting the organizers and the financial backers of these campaigns. Okay, and then it talks about the sentencing for the specific activity with these obstruction behaviors, is what they call them. They've already arrested 29 people on January 9th after this incident with this lady who got unalived because of her interference. Anyways, so on the 9th, 29 people were arrested, but the names were withheld. And it's not talked about in the media because there's kind of a blackout. Which currently there's a lawsuit by the media against the government because the Pentagon has created severe restrictions on the media. And I just feel like really and truly movement of, military and stuff like that should be restricted. I don't know what all the restrictions are, but they had to sign an agreement to these restrictions or they had their press passes taken from them and they're banned from the Pentagon. So, and they're not reporting about them as military movements because they could be, I think they're afraid of prosecution. So anyways, and I think honestly part of them is that their agenda is to show that none of it's legal, so that way when all these massive arrests and military starts rolling in, it'll just cause them to hate because they just keep hearing over and over from the military that that it's not lawful. And to me that's malicious propaganda because all of it falls under statutes. And if there was anything unlawful, the judges would kick it out, especially the liberal ones, But anyways, you have a bipartisan United States Supreme Court. They have liberals, they have Democrats, and they have, they have Republicans and conservatives. They got them on every level. Like you have your far left, your middle ground, your right, and your far right. They have the whole slew of every position, in our United States Supreme Court. So, they try to keep checks and balances. But I do believe there are some activist justices. And so, yeah, they're not going to put up with that. All right. So sorry guys. Okay. So if the judge tomorrow blocks them from sending in these troops or doesn't allow them to do what they, not the troops, but the ICE agents. They're sending in 2,000 more ICE agents because they're overwhelmed and outnumbered. So if any way this judge blocks them, this is what they're going to be invoking right here. Anywho's. And so that was from last month's ruling that they specifically said to use the military first before they use the guard. But they specifically was taught, basically they said that the behaviors of doing the things they're already doing is basically okay under the specific statute that they were already using, right? And they wouldn't touch what the lower court was trying to say. They were violating the Posse Comitatus Act. Was like, no, we're not going there. So anyways, they're going to prevail. That's the bottom line. So the citizen interference in federal charges falls under just multiple different statutes to repel what they consider an invasion, what they're calling an invasion. Anyways, so I'm trying to find these cat codes. I'm going to find these cat codes, guys. I'll find it. It's in here. Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, and there's some organizations that are under investigation, and yeah, they're going to get them. Okay, so yeah, so here's the statutes that they're going to be using. There's the units that they're already in place. More units, more detainment centers. United States citizens are... See, the media is telling people they can arrest United States citizens. Anytime they arrest United States citizens, they make such a big deal. And they lie and act like they have no authority to arrest United States citizens. Yes, they do. But they lie on purpose because they set people up so they can go out there thinking, hating on them even more. And it's just getting them all out there in one place so they can just round them all up. And one shebang, get them all at one time. That's what they're doing. I'm telling you now. So here's your codes. I'm not going to go into that. Okay, there's your forms. I'm going to find this where they classified them by cat codes. Cat codes. I'll find it, guys. There's the people that... Oh, by the way, there's rewards up to $250,000 for specific people. They're on the most wanted list. They call these certain obstructionists. And one of them is a city council member in Minnesota. See right here, they have placed these huge rewards to get these specific obstructionists that are... not only people that are currently wanted, but if you can get evidence of people who are doing these specific behaviors, it tells you exactly how to collect the evidence so that you can be eligible for these rewards. Like, I think they're trying to, they got so many people out there. They're like trying to bring the counters out. Like, they're basically, people that are online and they see all these live streams, like they could be helpful to the government by collecting evidence for them. And now they're giving them money. They're giving them money, guys, to help them collect evidence for them. Oh my gosh, guys. Citizen journalist tip line. I'm like, they have it all set up. I'm telling you, it's fixing to go down. Okay, let me find these cat codes. Oh my goodness. Yeah, so military grades, they was talking about some stuff. Oh, and the coordinates, I'm just like, they shouldn't be, like, I don't even think that's appropriate, right? Talking about, they used the M6, okay, so this MQ-9 Reaper, I want to talk about this because I did discuss that last night, but so there might be some secret capabilities of this weapon that I feel like if this is able to do specific things, that's not something that the military will ever admit or allow them to know, because when you have something that's an intelligence weapon and that, or equipment, if you will, that's what that is. They're not going to, here it is. They're not going to let you know the capabilities of their intelligence equipment. Like it would like basically eliminate the value. So anyways, I just wanted to point that out. So here we are, the ATAC, Android Tactical Assault Kit tablets used by military, police, and ICE tactical. So here are these are basically how people are going to be categorized when they're arrested based on the things that they've been doing with their anti-ICE behavior. So the CAT-W are the whistlers and people who are using loud noises to alert people. But here's one thing I also saw, that they were kind of shifting on this just in case this didn't work. They're also classifying the noisemakers as disturbing the rest of the ICE agent and using it as an impediment in that manner, because in case this argument right here doesn't work, of them using it, like there's some people that are saying, there's like argument out there saying, well, they can make noise all they want, it's free speech and boop boop boop. So not if they're alerting people, but because of what they've been doing as far as harassing them and not letting them get rest, it is also considered an obstruction. So they're using the whistle or acoustic in two different ways to make sure one of them's going to stick in court, right? It's just legal strategy. So this CAT-W are people who make whistles, acoustics for alerting or trying to basically prevent rest of the ICE agents. So then you have the CAT-Vs. These obstructionists are people who use a vehicle or in any way uses weapons that can cause, injuries or whatever. CAT-S are the stalkers, those who either digitally stalk them or follow them, okay, to track them and try to impede them. These are like higher levels, right? And then you have your CAT-Os, also higher levels, your people who organize and finance. And these people end up on the FBI most wanted list, such as the Minneapolis council person who was elected in 2023. He's now Soren Stevenson, I think his name is. So yeah, he's now wanted and there's a huge reward for him. Yeah. And anybody housing them will also be prosecuted. So then you have your CAT-H obstructionists, and these are the harborers. If they harbor or shield these people, so they can also be prosecuted. And so anyways, and then I'm not going to go into all that. So yeah, that's what's getting ready to go down. I'm not going to go into all that. I just wanted to share that because I think a lot of people, especially like if you're seeing stuff going on in our country, and it's like, I think a lot of people think that because they've just been getting by with it, that either A, they're all talk and they plan no arrest, or they don't really have the ability to arrest them. And with people like lawyers who might also be prosecuted, definitely could be disbarred for going on national TV and saying that they're not doing anything, it's all freedom of speech, when they're out there, alerting and doing all this other stuff. Then yeah, they're basically just, I really believe that they're inciting. I do believe they're inciting, but anyways, they're making them believe that they can just do this. And so that's why I was like, I really feel like that's wrong, because a lot of people, they may actually trust the local officials who are treating ICE, trying to just enforce, just trying to arrest people, the same thing that they have done under Democrats. I mean, there's nothing different that ICE is doing than what they've done in previous administrations. And so that's why it's so egregious that these local officials are doing this. And it's just all politics, really. So they basically, they just give them false sense of security that they can go out there and continue to do these things. And I feel like it's wrong, because if you lead somebody to believe that something's not illegal, and then they get arrested, and so that's where they're like, well, they're putting signs on posts in these rebellion zones. And I just feel like that, I don't feel like that will eventually hold up if it goes to SCOTUS. I don't think that's going to end up being sufficient notice, but it has currently been sufficient notice in their test run, and some judges have already upheld that, right? So I think, but I also think that, here's the thing, if the president and the government is saying over and over and over and over, this is illegal, this is illegal, this is illegal, this is terrorist behavior, and they just choose to believe what the left is saying, then each individual person has the duty to research the law themselves, and so yeah. Anyways, but yeah, that's getting ready to go down, guys. They're getting ready to do mass arrests. And I hope, my hope and my prayer is that the ICE agents that are there now or on their way are going to be allowed to do what they need to do. And that Tim Walz has basically went out there and said he's got the National Guard on call, but he said he's only going to roll them out if the locals want them. But the locals are corrupt. They're not going to ask for help from the National Guard. And Cash Jordan put out a video today, and I don't know how old those videos were. Sometimes he regurgitates videos, but it was pretty much, stuff I'd already seen. But it shows basically that the police, I mean, he's correct. The police have surrendered the city. They'll go out there and make a little bitty show about acting like they're doing something, but they have allowed them to do these things. And to me, it almost seems staged, not like it's fake, just almost like they're letting them do that so that they can give the criteria that the government needs to come in and take over. Is like, okay, well, we're not going to be the ones having to deal with this. We're just let the government come in. We'll just let this stuff escalate, and then, we're not going to be the ones to be hated. We're going to let the military or ICE, however they work that out in court, it's not going to be us. We're not going to be the ones doing the rest, right? We're not going to go out here and mass arrest these people. And I'm really logistically, I don't even think they had the ability to. I mean, police force, there was a lot of people out there. So anyways, it's over. Tomorrow is going to be the determination of what's going to happen next. And I just hope that it's going to be ICE, that they allow the 2,000 agents to go in. If that doesn't work, then send in a few hundred more. And if it gets crazy, if it gets really crazy and people start doing really crazy stuff and violent stuff, then yeah, I mean, the military are there. They're ready. They are in place, right? They're in place. It's over. So all these months of them getting by with all this stuff, they've had to build these detention centers, and they've had to fight out the illegal stuff, the stuff that came down last month's ruling. They've set up everything in place. All the military's in place. They've got they're still working on more detention centers, but they've got everything they need in place to make mass arrests. And it's going to be, I'm just like, man, I hope people will find out that they shouldn't go out there and do this. I hope they will just back off and let them do their jobs, and they can hate it all they want, but I just pray for them that they will realize that they're being used as pawns. Because honestly, if they would just look at the data, how many arrests that was made under Biden, it was over 1 million in 1 year alone. And most of those weren't even people pending charges, right? And so, oh my gosh. Anyways, it's only when Republicans are in office that they make a stink. And they just lie. I really want the media being dealt with. And a lot of people are like me, and they're calling for the media to be held accountable for propaganda. And here's YouTube talking about a recent thing on YouTube was that they're allowing fake stories, completely fabricated stuff. And it used to be that if something was over 50, I think it was over 50% fake, then I don't know if this is it or not. If it was over 50% fake, they would flag it and remove it just for being misinformation. But now they're just letting them do whatever they want. And so there's a lot of fake stuff, but the media has to be held accountable. I really truly believe that the media should be held accountable, because, and the local leaders that are out there basically inciting this stuff. And so, but if they're in any way financially being benefited from their behaviors, they're going to get them. They're going to get them. So that's going to be it for this one, guys. I just wanted to share that. I don't want to have a really long video. My back's hurting, got a headache, and so I just wanted to share. Maybe whoever's seeing this, if it's not, I'm not, I'm not still live. I just watch and see. You don't have to believe me. You don't have to believe what this stuff is being, what I'm saying here. But just watch and see. Okay. So, but definitely, I would ask, if you're somebody that prays, to pray over that hearing tomorrow, that they will let the ICE go in there and not escalate it to a level where the military has to go in there. I just really hate to see that. So also it talks about prosecutors use the GOVT DNA. I didn't even know that there's different. See, I went to law school so many years ago. They've got so many different rules, new rules of evidence, that they are actually allowing, like different types of new technology evidence, like GOVT DNA. Did you know that they use GOVT DNA when they're tracking somebody? Of course, it's usually simultaneously with other evidence, but then now they have biometric, they have thermal imaging. They can track people even if they have masks on, like they can identify them, like if they're standing still. But if they're in like a crowd and there's like a lot of people around them, it's a little bit harder. But like, I didn't even know they were using thermal imaging, like your blood vessels and the heat imaging or whatever, thermal imaging. It's almost like it's a new form of ID. It's like, I didn't even know that stuff. So that was interesting, the stuff that I'm learning. But anyways, we'd like to know the specific military transport protocols used to move these CAT-O organizers from the point of arrest to high security units at USP Marion. Oh my gosh. So here's the new rule under Federal Rules of Evidence, FRE 702, and recent Supreme Court precedents regarding national defense airspace operations. They do allow thermal biometrics, but with vascular mapping. But they're like, I don't know if you remember back in June where they were making big fuss about them using these surveillance drones, and they're like, well, they don't have the ability to, make these kind of identifications from that distance and boop, boop, boop. And I'm like, okay, that's what they want you to think, because if they expose that in the media, that was a huge security defense issue, because these types of equipment are intelligence equipment, and you cannot let other nations know what we have, the secrets about our equipment. Like, that was a big no-no when they were trying to expose that there were drones in the air that can track people like that. And I'm like, you can't do that. Those are secrets about those equipments, and that's not something that they're ever going to publicly admit that it can do, because it's an intelligence equipment. And you don't want Russia and China are always trying to steal our secrets, and like, we're not going to let them people know. So that's why you're going to see some of these court cases are going to be sealed. Okay. And yeah, and part of that, I believe, is because of the type of evidence that they're using. And I don't think they're going to be able, like, if it really is able to, identify somebody from certain distances, I don't think that secret is going to be secret for very long, but they're trying to hang on to it as much as they can. Anyways, yeah, I think that equipment can do that, but I think there's a lot of limitations to it. But anyways, they are using thermal gate analysis and different types of things, different new things that they're using, like military stuff. The CAT-O organizers are considered HVDs. They're high value detainees, so that's the transport protocols. So they will go to those are the ones that go to the higher security facilities like USP Marion. So they have blackout transit. Organizers are often transported in up armored military vehicles or JPATs, Justice Prisoner and Alien Transportation System aircraft. So they're placed in administrative segregation to prevent them from communicating with other detainees. That's why a lot of times you'll hear, like, I'm not being able to communicate with my loved one. Blah, blah, blah. Well, that's just because they fall under, military protocol when they're being transported or even detained. And so that's why it's going to be, they better hope that they let ICE do what they got to do, because you don't want to be arrested by the military. Oh my gosh. Anyways. So they will use the U.S. Marshal Service to maintain legal distinction. I'm going to go back for a second here and talk about how YouTube is allowing fake news stories. Like, even if they're 100% totally made up and pretending like it's real, they have just completely removed the policy where they will remove those if people complain about it, being just total fake news. It's clickbait, though. Like, for example, there was so who was it? Like a channel that had, like, I don't know, 30-some thousand subscribers was putting out a story about a judge issued an arrest order of Donald Trump. It's clickbait. No, he didn't. Like, that didn't even happen. There was an order from today about some money that was being withheld. I think it was like $14 million, something like that. And I'm pretty sure that's going to be appealed. But it's just, you have to almost now, everything you see and hear on YouTube, you have to verify. You have to do research. Because I'm telling you now, what you don't know is that YouTube has relaxed their policies about fake news and like just straight up clickbait. They're just allowing it. And it's disgusting. And it's only going to backfire for them because it's going to make people mad. But anyways, the CAT-O organizer are transferred to USP Marion. They're placed in communication management, the CMU. So these are considered level 5. They're also super max light security. So if somebody is organizing these ICE watches, they're going to be in the maximum security, super max light security, to isolate individuals who have capability to coordinate rebellion or illegal activities from within prison walls. They will have their mail read by government officials before it's received or mailed out. They will have every single phone call they have will be recorded, which pretty much I believe is in the way prisons are, but they will have no contact visits. They will be in a security level 5 maximum isolation. These organizers are housed in single cell units with 23-hour-a-day lockdown. So they're separated from the general pop to prevent them from radicalizing other inmates or establish new obstructionist networks. Special administrative measures, SAMs under 28 CFR 5013. The Attorney General can authorize SAMs if there's a substantial risk if the inmate's communications could result in death or seriously bodily injury to others. So for these CAT-O obstructionist organizers, it means no unmonitored calls, and they're limited to 15 minutes, monitored in real time by an FBI translator or analyst. Mail scrutiny. All incoming and outgoing mail is copied and reviewed by Purposeful Interference Response Team, the PIRT team, before being delivered. There will be no media access. Organizers are not allowed to give interviews or release statements to the media to prevent them from inciting further rebellion. The digital blackout protocol, digital stalkers, like when they're creating apps to report where ICE is, any encrypted app data, they've already broke through it. USP Marion employs an enhanced digital blackout, signal jamming. They will use internal frequency jammers to make sure no contraband mobile devices can access cellular or Wi-Fi networks. They will have restricted library access. And here's the craziest thing. I've never seen this before. This was so interesting. They're going to have vascular confirmation at every gate. To prevent identity swaps or escape attempts, the facility uses the same thermal vascular ID technology used by the drones. Inmates must undergo a vascular scan to move between any points in the facility. So usually they've done palm prints, they've done fingerprints. I don't know if they've done iris, whatever, identification. I don't know. I think now they collect DNA, but now they're doing vascular scans because your blood vessels, and I didn't even know this. This is so interesting. So when they do these thermal ID scans, they basically you no matter, even when you age, you have blood vessels that have an identity through these type of scans, and it's just so interesting. So they will have to have a vascular scan. Anyways, no contact visits, 0 physical contact allowed with visitors. Anywho's legal status of isolation. They said these restrictions are necessary because for national security under the Insurrection Act. So that's why, see, they've already set all this in place for implementing the Insurrection Act. So if this judge doesn't allow these ICE agents, then all of these are going to be implemented under this, but also this statute, right? Anyways, so the CATO organizer felons, there's no leniency timeline for these particular felons because their crimes are categorized as coordinated rebellion, the organizers. So interference with federal process. The step down timeline and eligibility. So if let's say they get sentenced and they have the 50% rule, an organizer has to serve half of their total sentence. Let's say if they get 5 years, they have to serve 2.5 before they can even apply for a step down to a level 4 general population maximum or a level 3 medium security facility. So mandatory isolation period for those convicted under 18 USC Section 111B, the first 48 months of the sentence are served under these specific measures, which is pretty much near total communication blackout. So yeah, that's pretty serious. Anyways, the permanent restricted list, this guy right here is wanted, and there's a big reward for him. He's currently wanted. So they have identified him as a tier 1 list of organizers, including those from the most wanted, like this guy, who is permanently ineligible for a step down. So whatever sentence that he eventually gets, he will not be eligible for requesting anything other than the maximum security, because they're classified as continuous threats to federal authority, and they will serve the entire sentences in the level 5 CMUs. Okay. So all this craziness you've been seeing out there and all this stuff they've been doing, Judgment Day's coming. It's coming. So stay tuned. I'll maybe do a little update tomorrow after the judge makes its ruling. And yeah, so I hope you have a blessed day. Blessed day, blessed day. Let me go in and open this up. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to visit everybody who visited my live stream. If you are seeing this, after this is, like, after I'm done or whatever, being the live stream, yeah, I just wish that people would share this information, because I repeat, you will not see this in the media because of 2 reasons. One, the Pentagon has created protocol that they're not allowed to. They are prohibited from discussing it, and they're under threat of criminal prosecution. It's not classified information. It's just not allowed to be widely disseminated. Also, they have their own agenda to declare that all of this is not lawful. So they don't want you to know, But anyways, you'll see. So hope you have a blessed day. Bye.